"One more stitch, and your dress will be perfect, Miss Helena." The slender fingers of a young seamstress move with practiced precision across delicate silk fabric. A needle dances through the material, guided by hands that appear too gentle for anything but detailed needlework. Behind her, rough voices echo through the wooden walls of her small shop. "Find that seamstress. She knows where the ledger is." The woman's gentle expression doesn't change as she finishes the final stitch. Only. Her eyes, sharp as the needles scattered across her workbench, betray something deeper. She reaches beneath her sewing table, past the spools of thread and scraps of fabric, to where 5 perfectly balanced throwing knives lie hidden. "I said I'd never go back to that life," she whispers, "but they've left me no choice." Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The bustling market square of Porto Nero teems with life as merchants hawk their wares under the warm Mediterranean sun. Among the weathered stone buildings, a modest shop stands out not for its appearance, but for the quality of work that emerges. From behind its wooden door, a simple sign reads, "Sophia's Seamstress Shop." Inside, Sophia Russo works with careful precision on a nobleman's coat. At 28, she earned a reputation as the finest seamstress in the port city, known for her ability to transform fabric into works of art. Her small frame and delicate features mask years of hardship that only the faint scars on her hands might betray. The bell above her door chimes. "Come in," Sophia calls without looking up from her work. "I'll be with you in just a moment." Heavy footsteps cross her wooden floor, too heavy for her usual clientele of merchants' wives and nobility. She looks up to find 3 men filling her doorway, their rough appearance at odds with the refined environment of her shop. The leader, a scarred man with a gold tooth, smiles without warmth. "Miss Russo," he says, rolling her name across his tongue like a bad taste. "Or should I say, Sophia the Needle Castellano?" Sophia's fingers are still on the nobleman's coat. It's a name she hasn't heard in 5 years, not since she left behind her family's legacy in the criminal underworld of Naples. "I think you have the wrong person," she says quietly. "I'm just a seamstress." The man with the gold tooth laughs. "Just a seamstress? The way I hear it, you were the best knife thrower in all of Italy. They say you could pin a man's sleeve to a wall from 20 paces without drawing blood." He leans forward, placing his hands on her cutting table. The Castellano family's little secret weapon. "That was a long time ago," Sophia replies carefully, setting aside her current work. "What do you want?" "The Corvino family sends their regards," he says, and Sophia feels her blood run cold. The Corvinos, her family's old rivals, responsible for her father's death. "We know you were there the night your father died. We know he gave you something. A ledger containing every secret deal, every hidden cash, every name in your family's organization." Sophia's expression remains neutral, but her mind races. The ledger, her father's insurance policy, passed to her moments before the Corvinos gunned him down. The very thing that had allowed her to escape that life, to ensure her safety with its threat of exposed secrets. "I don't have what you're looking for," she says firmly. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have work to finish." The man's smile vanishes. "Listen carefully, little seamstress. The Corvinos don't make polite requests twice. You have until sunset tomorrow to bring us that ledger, or we will start visiting your clients." He picks up a piece of fine silk from her table. "Starting with the governor's daughter, I hear you're making her wedding dress." Sophia stands slowly. Though she barely reaches the man's shoulder, something in her posture makes him take a small step back. "You're threatening my clients." "Just delivering a message," he says, dropping the silk. "Sunset tomorrow. Don't disappoint us." They leave the bell chiming with artificial cheerfulness behind them. Sophia waits until their footsteps fade before moving to her window. 2 more men linger in the square, poorly disguised as merchants. They'll be watching her shop now, day and night. She closes her shutters and moves to the back of her shop, to a trunk covered in rolls of fabric. Inside, beneath layers of cloth, lies a false bottom. Sophia's hands shake slightly as she removes it, revealing 5 throwing knives, each perfectly balanced, each marked with a small needle etched into the blade, her signature from another life. "I'm sorry, Papa," she whispers, running a finger along one of the blades. "I thought I could leave it all behind." A knock at her door makes her freeze. "We're closed," she calls out, quickly replacing the false bottom. "Sophia, it's me, Marco." She relaxes slightly, recognizing the voice of the young messenger boy who often brings her orders from wealthy clients. Opening the door reveals his worried face. "Miss Sophia, I saw those men leave your shop," he says in a rush. "Everyone's talking about it. They say they're from the Corvino family." "It's nothing to worry about, Marco," she assures him, though her mind is already forming plans. "Just a misunderstanding about an order." Marco shifts nervously. "My uncle says the Corvinos never have misunderstandings. He says they're taking over all the port cities one by one, that they deal in more than just shipping now." Sophia's expression hardens. This confirms what she's feared. The Corvinos aren't just seeking revenge or trying to eliminate a loose end. They're expanding their territory, and they need her father's ledger to smooth their takeover of Porto Nero. "Marco, I need you to do something for me," she says, pressing a coin into his hand. "Go to the governor's mansion. Tell them I need to reschedule Miss Helena's fitting for tomorrow morning as early as possible. Can you do that?" The boy nods eagerly, clutching the coin. "And Marco," she adds as he turns to leave, "be careful who you talk to for the next few days." After he leaves, Sophia returns to her workbench. With steady hands, she finishes the nobleman's coat, her stitches as precise as ever. But her mind is elsewhere, calculating angles, remembering patterns, not of fabric and thread, but of shadows and movement, of blade trajectories and the weak points in a man's defense. As the sun sets over Porto Nero, Sophia begins her preparations. She'll need to move the ledger tonight before the Corvinos get impatient, but first she has a wedding dress to finish. After all, she thinks as she threads her needle, she has a reputation to maintain. In the gathering darkness, she works by candlelight, each stitch perfect, each seam straight. And if some of those stitches conceal clever places to hide thin blades, well, a seamstress must always be prepared for alterations. The midnight bell tolls across Porto Nero as Sophia finally sets aside her work. She moves to the window, peering through a gap in the shutters. The Corvino watchdogs are still there, poorly concealed in the shadows of the marketplace. One nurses a bottle of wine, while the other paces restlessly. "Amateurs," she whispers, a hint of her old life creeping into her voice. The Castellanos would never have sent such obvious surveillance. Her father had taught her better than that. The memory of her father sends a sharp pain through her chest. Giovanni Castellano had been many things: a criminal, a smuggler, a man who lived by his own code, but he had also been a loving father who wanted a better life for his daughter. He had been the one to insist she learn a trade beyond their family business, the one who paid for her apprenticeship with old Madame Laurent, the French seamstress who taught her not just about fabric and thread, but about starting over. "A needle can mend more than cloth, little one," Madame Laurent used to say. "It can mend lives too." Sophia moves silently through her shop, gathering what she needs. In the secret compartment beneath her floorboards, behind the trunk with her knives, she retrieves her father's ledger. The leather-bound book seems heavier than its size would suggest, weighted down with the secrets and sins of 2 generations of Castellanos. She opens it briefly, running her fingers over her father's precise handwriting. He had been as meticulous in keeping records as she was in her stitching. Every transaction, every deal, every favor owed, all documented in a complex code that only a Castellano could decipher. The Corvinos would need her alive to read it, which gave her some leverage, at least for now. A sound from the alley behind her shop makes her freeze. Soft footsteps, trying too hard to be quiet. Sophia slips the ledger into a hidden pocket in her skirts and moves to the back door. Through a crack, she sees another figure joining the shadows. They're surrounding her shop. 4 men for 1 seamstress, she murmurs, allowing herself a small, dangerous smile. Either they're very cautious or very stupid. She returns to her workbench and begins making preparations. First, she changes into one of her own creations, a dress that appears modest and restricting, but is designed with hidden slits and gussets that allow for free movement. Next, she braids her long dark hair tightly against her head. Loose hair is a liability in a fight. From various hiding spots around her shop, she retrieves her tools. The throwing knives go into specially designed sheaths hidden under her skirts. A garrote wire is disguised as a decorative cord on her bodice. Even her sewing needles find their place, slipped into the stiff fabric of her collar. They may be small, but in the right spots, they can be devastatingly effective. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. As she arms herself, Sophia reflects on how different this is from her morning routine of preparing thread and fabric for a day of honest work. Part of her mourns the simple life she's built here, knowing that after tonight, everything will change. But a smaller, darker part, the part that will always be her father's daughter, feels alive with familiar tension. A sudden commotion outside draws her attention. Through the window, she sees one of the guards straighten up, speaking urgently to someone she can't see. A moment later, the bell above her door chimes. "We're closed," she calls out, her hand moving to one of her concealed knives. "Sophia? Sophia, are you there? It's Elena." Sophia's heart sinks as she recognizes the voice of her young apprentice. What is she doing here at this hour? The 16-year-old girl should be safe at home, not walking the dangerous nighttime streets of Porto Nero. "Elena, go home," Sophia calls out firmly. It's not safe. Her warning comes too late. She hears Elena's frightened gasp, followed by the heavy tread of boots. The Corvino men have grown tired of waiting. "Come out, little seamstress," calls the man with the gold tooth. "We have company. You wouldn't want anything to happen to your pretty apprentice, would you?" Sophia closes her eyes briefly, calculating angles and distances in her head. The shop is small, but she knows every creaking board, every shadow, every potential weapon. They've given her no choice. She'll have to fight her way out, and she'll have to do it without revealing her true skills. The seamstress of Porto Nero can't be connected to the violence that's about to unfold. "I'm coming out," she calls, already moving into position. "Please don't hurt her. I'll give you what you want." As she reaches for the door handle, Sophia whispers a quiet apology to Elena, to her father, to the peaceful life she's about to leave behind. Then she opens the door, stepping into what she knows will become a storm of violence, her fingers already finding the reassuring grip of her first throwing knife. The door creaks open, and Sophia steps into the moonlit shop front, her hands raised in a gesture of surrender. Elena stands trembling between 2 of the Corvino men, tears streaming down her young face. "Miss Sophia, I'm so sorry," Elena sobs. "They said they just wanted to talk to you. I didn't know." "Quiet, girl," snaps the man with the gold tooth, giving Elena a rough shake. He turns his attention to Sophia. "Now, where's the ledger?" Sophia's mind races back to her father's lessons. "Rule number 1, little needle," he would say. "When surrounded, make them underestimate you. Fear and desperation are masks we wear to hide our strength." "Please," Sophia says, letting her voice quaver. "I'll tell you everything. Just let her go. She's innocent in all this." She takes a stumbling step forward, apparently weak with fear. The movement brings her exactly 4 steps from the nearest thug, 2 steps from her cutting table. The gold-toothed man, clearly the leader, laughs. The legendary needle, reduced to begging. Your father would be ashamed. You didn't know. My father, Sophia says quietly, memories flooding back. Flashback, Naples, 10 years ago. Again, Giovanni Castellano commanded, watching his daughter retrieve her throwing knives from the target board. 17-year-old Sophia wiped sweat from her brow. They'd been practicing for hours in the cellar beneath their family villa. Her arms ached, but she knew better than to complain. Papa, why must I learn this? She asked, taking her position. We have plenty of men who can fight. Giovanni's weathered face softened slightly. Because, my little needle, in our world, strength must wear many disguises. The Corvinos, they understand only brute force. But true power? He gestured to the target. True power lies in precision, in patience, in the ability to strike once, perfectly, when the moment is right. Sophia threw the knives in rapid succession. 3 thuds, 3 perfect hits. Better. Giovanni nodded. Now show me your stitches. Sophia blinked in surprise. My stitches? Her father produced a length of silk and a needle. You think I send you to Madame Laurent just to maintain our cover? Everything I teach you has purpose. Show me. Sophia took the silk, her movements shifting from warrior to seamstress in an instant. Her father watched as she created an intricate pattern. You see, he said softly, the same skills, precision, patience, the perfect strike. Whether with a blade or needle, you create art. He took her hands in his. But you must promise me something, my Sophia. Promise me you'll use these skills to build a better life than mine. Present, the memory shatters as the gold-toothed man grows impatient. Enough stalling. The ledger now, or we start removing the girl's fingers. She won't be much use as a seamstress without them, will she? Elena whimpers, and Sophia's mask of fear hardens into something else. They've made 3 critical mistakes. First, they've threatened her apprentice. Second, they've backed her into her own territory, where every shadow and corner is an ally. And third, they've reminded her of a promise made to her father, a promise to build a better life. Very well, Sophia says, her voice steady now. The ledger is in my back room. I'll show you. The leader gestures to his men. Watch them both. If either tries anything, his words cut off as Sophia trips, stumbling against her cutting table. Scissors and fabric scatter across the floor. The men laugh at her clumsiness. Some legendary assassin, one snickers. None of them notice that. In the confusion, Sophia has palmed 3 of her sewing needles. None of them see how her stumble has positioned Elena away from the windows. None of them understand that every move she's made since opening the door has been carefully choreographed. Rule number 2, her father's voice echoes in her memory. The best trap is the one they walk into willingly. As they force her toward the back room, Sophia's fingers brush against her hidden knives. She thinks of the life she's built here, the honest work, the respect she's earned, the peace she's found in creating beauty instead of dealing death. After tonight, that life will be over, but as her father also taught her, sometimes you have to destroy something to protect it. Elena, she says softly, close your eyes. The next few moments are a blur of motion. The first needle finds the throat of the man holding Eleanor. The second strikes the lamp on the wall, plunging the shop into darkness. The third creates the distraction she needs as it pierces the gold-toothed man's hand, making him drop his weapon. Inner, the chaos that follows, Sophia becomes the needle once more. Her throwing knives sing through the air with deadly precision. Her moves are efficient, elegant, a deadly dance choreographed through years of practice. Each strike is calculated, to disable rather than kill. She's left enough death behind in Naples. When it's over, Elena stands trembling in the corner, eyes still tightly shut. The Corvino men lie groaning on the floor, each pinned by strategically placed blades. None dead, but none in any condition. To follow, Elena, Sophia says gently. You can open your eyes now, but what you're about to see, you must keep it secret. Can you do that for me? The girl opens her eyes slowly, taking in the scene with growing amazement. Miss Sophia, how did you... There's no time to explain everything, Sophia says, already moving to retrieve her knives. But I need you to listen carefully. Go home. Pack what you can carry. Your mother, too. There's a convent in Tuscany where Madame Laurent has connections. Show them this. She presses a token into Elena's hand, embroidered with a secret symbol. They'll protect you until this is over. But what about you? What about the shop? Sophia looks around at her beloved workshop, knowing she'll never set foot in it again. Sometimes we must give up what we love to protect it, she says, echoing her father's words from long ago. The shop is just a place, Elena. What I taught you, that's yours forever. Now go, quickly. As Elena slips away into the night, Sophia retrieves her father's ledger and a small pack of essentials she's kept ready for just such an occasion. From outside, she hears shouts, more Corvino men drawn by the commotion. She takes one last look at her shop, at the life she's built here. Then she slips into the secret passage behind her fabric shelves, another of her father's lessons, about always having an escape route, and disappears into the darkness. In the distance, church bells toll midnight across Porto Nero. By dawn, whispers will spread through the port city about the seamstress who vanished in the night. Some will say she fled with stolen gold. Others will claim she was taken by rivals. Only Elena will know the truth, will remember the graceful deadliness of her mentor's true art. And in the shadows of the city's ancient streets, Sophia Russo, the woman who spent 5 years building a life of peace, becomes Sophia the Needle. Castellano once more. She has a promise to keep, not just to protect her father's legacy, but to ensure that Elena and others like her can live in a world where skill with a needle doesn't have to mean skill with a blade. I'm sorry, Papa, she whispers, as she makes her way through the underground passages that honeycomb the old city. I know you wanted a better life for me, but sometimes, to build something new, we must use the tools of our past. The night swallows. A hole, and the legend of the seamstress of Porto Nero becomes just another tale whispered in taverns. But in the shadows, a new story is about to begin, one written in steel and silk, in blood and thread, in the precise calculations of a woman who knows that every stitch, like every throw of a blade, must be perfect. As Sophia navigates the ancient tunnels beneath Porto Nero, another memory surfaces, the day everything changed. Flashback, Naples, 7 years ago. The summer sun beat down on the Naples waterfront as Sophia hurried through the crowded marketplace. Her father had sent an urgent message. Come to the villa, bring your needles, both kinds. She found Giovanni in his study, surrounded by papers. His normally immaculate desk was in chaos, and dark circles shadowed his eyes. Papa, what's wrong? Giovanni looked up, his weathered face gravely. The Corvinos are moving against us. They've bought off half our allies and threatened the rest. He held up a leather-bound book, the ledger. This is all we have left. Every secret, every deal, every weakness in their organization that I've gathered over 20 years. Then use it, Sophia urged. Expose them. Her father shook his head. Not yet. The timing must be perfect. He pressed the book into her hands. Keep this safe. If anything happens to me, Papa, don't talk like that. Listen to me, Sophia. The Corvinos think they understand power. They think it's about how many men you can command, how much blood you can spill. But true power. He touched the ledger. True power is in knowing when to strike and when to wait. Just like with your knives, just like with your needlework, the perfect moment is everything. A commotion outside interrupted them. Shouts, gunfire. "They're here," Giovanni said calmly, too calmly. "Take the tunnel behind the bookcase. Don't stop until you reach Madame Laurent's." "I won't leave you, Sophia." He gripped her shoulders. "Sometimes the greatest courage is in living, not dying. I've made arrangements. Madame Laurent will help you disappear. Build a new life, my little needle, a better one. Papa, go, now." She fled through the tunnel as the Corvinos broke in. The last thing she heard was her father's voice, strong and defiant. "Ah, Corvino, I've been expecting you." Sophia emerges from the tunnels near the city's eastern gate, where the old walls are crumbling. Dawn is still hours away, but she can't risk waiting. The Corvinos will have men watching every road out of Porto Nero by sunrise. A sound makes her freeze. Footsteps on cobblestones. "I thought I might find you here," a familiar voice says. From the shadows steps an elderly woman, her silver hair gleaming in the moonlight. "Madame Laurent, Sophia's old mentor and protector. How did you know?" Sophia asks. The old Frenchwoman smiles sadly. "When Elena came to me, frightened half to death, talking about men threatening you, I knew this day had come." She produces a small package wrapped in oilcloth. "Your father arranged this years ago. Said I should give it to you if you ever had to run again." Sophia takes the package with trembling hands. Inside she finds papers, travel documents, letters of introduction, maps with locations marked in her father's precise handwriting. And beneath them, a letter sealed with the Castellano family crest. "He knew," Sophia whispers. "He knew this might happen. Your father was many things, my dear, but never a fool." Madame Laurent touches Sophia's cheek gently. "He knew that sometimes our past catches up to us, no matter how far we run. The question is, what do we do when it does?" Sophia tucks the package into her dress alongside the ledger. "I thought I could leave it all behind, build something new." "And you did, Madame," Laurent says firmly. "That shop, those students you taught, that was real. The woman you became here, she's real too. Don't forget that. The Corvinos won't stop," Sophia says. "They'll hurt anyone close to me to get what they want. Then perhaps it's time to stop running." The old woman produces one more item, a small key. "Your father had a cache in Firenze. Weapons, money, information, everything you might need to fight back." Sophia takes the key, feeling its weight, the weight of a decision, of a path chosen. "I never wanted to be this person again, my dear," Madame Laurent says softly. "You were never just one person. The seamstress and the warrior, they're both you. The trick isn't in choosing between them, but in understanding when each is needed." In the distance, bells toll again. Warning bells this time. The Corvinos have raised the alarm. "Go," Madame Laurent urges. "I'll make sure Eleanor and the others are safe." Sophia hugs her old mentor fiercely. "Thank you for everything. Just remember what I taught you," the Frenchwoman calls, as Sophia melts into the shadows. "Whether with a needle or blade, every strike must have a purpose," Sophia finishes. "Every cut must be clean." She disappears into the pre-dawn darkness, leaving Porto Nero and her peaceful life behind. But this time, she's not running away from her past. She's running toward something. Toward justice, toward vengeance, toward a reckoning that's been 7 years in the making. In her mind, she can still hear her father's voice. True power lies in precision, in patience, in the ability to strike once perfectly when the moment is right. The moment isn't right yet, but it will be. And when it comes, the Corvinos will learn why they should have feared the seamstress more than the assassin. The road to Firenze winds through hills shrouded in morning mist. Sophia, having traded her seamstress's dress for simpler traveling clothes, keeps to the shadows of the tree line. Behind her, the bells of Porto Nero have fallen silent, but she knows the silence is deceptive. The Corvinos will be spreading their net wider with each passing hour. A merchant's carriage approaches on the road. Sophia presses herself against a tree, scanning for pursuers. Instead, she sees a familiar face through the carriage window, Beatrice Salvatore, one of her most loyal customers. The woman is wearing the ball gown Sophia finished just last week, presumably heading to some morning social engagement. Your past life always finds ways to remind you of what you're leaving behind, Sophia whispers to herself, touching the knife hilts hidden beneath her cloak. The weight of her father's ledger seems to grow heavier with each step away from Porto Nero. The sound of horses at full gallop breaks through her reverie. Not from the road, from the hills behind her. The Corvinos have picked up her trail sooner than expected. Amateurs, she mutters, but there's no humor in her voice now. In open terrain like this, numbers matter more than skill. She counts. The hoofbeats. 4 riders, maybe 5. Sophia quickens her pace, keeping to the cover of the trees. The merchant's carriage is just disappearing around a bend ahead, where the road cuts through a narrow pass between 2 hills. Her father's voice echoes in her memory. The perfect throw isn't just about the knife, little needle, it's about choosing the right ground. The pass would make an excellent ambush point for either side. She reaches the bend just as the first rider comes into view behind her. Sophia recognizes him even at this distance, Marco Corvino, the family's master huntsman. If he's leading the pursuit himself, the situation is even more serious than she thought. The pass stretches before her, its steep walls lined with loose rock and scraggly trees. Sophia makes her decision quickly. She can't outrun horses, and she can't fight 5 armed men in the open. But in these close quarters, with the right preparation, working quickly, she pulls a spool of strong black thread from her pack. Not the delicate silk she uses for fine dresses, but the sturdy stuff meant for leather work. As the hoofbeats grow closer, she begins to weave her trap. A seamstress creates patterns, she remembers Madame Laurent saying. An assassin creates chaos. True mastery lies in knowing how to do both at once. The first tripwire goes across the narrowest part of the pass, nearly invisible against the shadowed ground. The second she places higher, at horse-chest height. The third she saves, holding it ready. Marco Corvino's voice carries through the morning air. The ledger will be useless if she reaches Firenze. Take her alive if you can, but don't let her escape. Sophia positions herself behind a boulder, checking her knives. 5 blades, 5 riders. But she won't need all of them. Not if her trap works. The first rider hits the lower wire at full gallop. His horse goes down hard, throwing him clear. The second rider, following too closely, catches the higher wire across the chest and is ripped from his saddle. The remaining 3 pull up sharply, but the pass is too narrow for them to maneuver effectively. "Needle!" Marco Corvino shouts, drawing his pistol. "Face me like a Castellano!" Sophia's response is a perfectly thrown knife that knocks the weapon from his hand. Her second blade pins his lieutenant's sleeve to his saddle as he reaches for his own gun. "The Castellanos face their enemies with honor," she calls out, moving to a new position as bullets chip stone where she was standing. The Corvinos sent 5 armed men to hunt 1 seamstress. Which of us lacks honor, Marco? Honor. Marco spits. Was it honor that made your father hide his secrets in that ledger instead of facing us directly? Was it honor that made you run and hide like a coward? These past 7 years, Sophia's third knife buries itself in Marco's saddle horn, inches from his hand. A warning. You want to talk about honor? Let's talk about how your family murdered my father. 5 men with guns against 1 old man. Was that an honor? Your father was a fool who didn't understand the changing times, Marco says. He signals to his remaining men who begin to dismount. The old ways are dead, Needle. Territory, respect, codes of conduct, they mean nothing now. Only power matters. The ledger will give us that power. You're wrong, Sophia says, and now She reveals herself, standing atop a boulder with her remaining 2 knives gleaming in the morning light. The old ways aren't dead. They're just waiting for the right moment to strike. She throws the 3rd wire, which she's been holding ready. It catches the sunlight as it arcs through the air, a distraction that draws every eye. In that split second of inattention, she moves. The first guard falls to a strike at a pressure point, another of her father's lessons. The second loses his weapon to a precise throw that seems to come from nowhere. The third rushes her with a knife of his own. But Sophia steps inside his guard just as she would step up to a dress form, her movements precise and measured. He goes down without ever seeing the blade that took him. Marco watches his men fall with growing fury. He draws a hidden blade from his boot. "Still playing with your little needles, I see. Let me show you real steel." Their blades meet with a ring that echoes off the pass walls. Marco is bigger, stronger, trained in the brutal efficiency of a professional killer. But Sophia moves like water, like silk in the wind. Each of his powerful strikes meets empty air. As she flows around them, "My father taught me that a blade is just a tool," she says, ducking under a wild swing. "Like a needle, like a thread. It's the hand that guides it that matters." "Your father taught you to lose," Marco growls, pressing his attack, "just like he lost everything in the end." The words are meant to enrage her, to make her sloppy. Instead, they bring a perfect clarity. Sophia sees the pattern of the fight as clearly as she sees the pattern of a dress design. Every movement, every strike, every counter, it's all just another stitch in a larger work. She lets Marco drive her back toward the edge of the pass. He grins, thinking he has her trapped. "No more running, Needle. Nowhere left to hide." "I'm not hiding anymore," Sophia says softly. And then she shows him why the Castellanos were feared long before the Corvinos rose to power. Her movement is too fast to follow. A seamstress's precision combined with an assassin's killing instinct. Marco's blade goes flying, and he finds himself pinned to a tree by his own knife, driven through his sleeve with perfect accuracy. Sophia steps close, pressing her final blade against his throat. "I could kill you right now. Send a message to your family written in blood." Marco's eyes show real fear for the first time. "Then do it. Prove you're still your father's daughter." "No," Sophia says, stepping back. "I am my father's daughter. That's why I'm letting you live. Because he taught me that true power isn't in how many lives you take, but in how many you choose to spare." She retrieves her knives one by one, wiping them clean before returning them to their hidden sheaths. "Tell your masters this. The ledger stays with me. If they want it, they'll have to do better than sending their dog to hunt me." "They'll never stop," Marco calls after her as she walks away. "You'll never be safe." Sophia pauses at the end of the pass. "I don't want to be safe," she says without turning around. "I want to be worthy of my father's legacy. Remember that, Marco. Remember what happened here today. Because next time we meet, I might not be feeling so merciful." She disappears into the morning mist, leaving Marco and his men to nurse their wounds and their wounded pride. By the time they disentangle themselves from her traps, she'll be long gone. But as she makes her way toward Firenze, Sophia knows this is just the beginning. The Corvinos won't take this humiliation lightly. They'll send more men, better men. They'll threaten anyone they think might help her. They'll burn down half of Italy to find that ledger. "Good," she whispers, feeling the familiar weight of her. Knives, the precious burden of her father's book. "Let them come. This time I'm ready." In her mind, she's already plotting her next moves, seeing the pattern emerge like a design on finest silk. The Corvinos think they're hunting her, but they don't understand. Every step they take brings them closer to the trap she's beginning to weave, a trap made of steel and shadow, of silk and secrets, of a daughter's love and an assassin's patience. Distant church bell tolls the hour, reminding her of her shop in Porto Nero. For a moment, she allows herself to mourn the life she's leaving behind. Then she straightens her shoulders and continues on her way. She has work to do, and like any good seamstress, she intends to make every stitch count. The sun hangs low in the sky when Sophia finally allows herself to rest. She finds shelter in an abandoned shepherd's hut, its weathered walls offering temporary sanctuary. As she tends to a small cut on her arm, Marco's blade has come closer than she'd care to admit. Her mind wanders to the lessons that kept her alive today. Again, her father shouted, circling Sophia as she faced 3 training partners. You're fighting like a brawler. Think like a seamstress. 17-year-old Sophia wiped blood from her split lip. What does sewing have to do with fighting? Giovanni smiled. Everything. When you make a dress, what's the first thing you do? Take measurements, Sophia answered, dodging a strike. Understand. The pattern. Exactly. Every fight is a pattern. Every opponent has measurements. Reach, speed, strength. He gestured at her attackers. See their movement like threads in a tapestry. Find the loose ends. Sophia narrowed her eyes, suddenly seeing what he meant. The largest attacker favored his left leg. The quickest one telegraphed his moves with a slight shoulder twitch. The third was tiring, his strikes becoming predictable. In 3 moves, all 3 lay groaning on the ground. Better, Giovanni nodded. Remember, little needle? A seamstress doesn't waste motion. Every cut, every stitch serves a purpose. Fight the same way. Sophia examines her reflection in a broken piece of glass. The cut on her arm will heal clean. She's stitched her own wounds often enough to know. But something in her eyes has changed. The peaceful seamstress of Porto Nero is fading, replaced by someone harder, sharper. A sound outside freezes her in place. Voices, men searching. She has to be around here somewhere, a gruff voice says. No one could travel far after a fight. Like that, Sophia moves silently to the hut's single window. 4 men, not Marco's group, but definitely Corvino soldiers. They're being more cautious this time, moving in a search pattern her father would have approved of. She could slip away unseen. The back of the hut faces dense woods. But then they'd just keep following, and she needs rest before reaching Firenze. Time to add another pattern to the tapestry, she whispers, reaching for her knives. The first man never sees her coming. A precise strike to a nerve cluster, and he drops silently. The second turns at a manufactured sound, exactly as she planned, and walks right into her trap. The third manages to raise his pistol, but Sophia's throw sends a knife through his sleeve, and into the tree behind him, pinning him in place. The fourth proves more challenging. He's older, more experienced. His swordwork speaks of formal training. I know who you are, he says, parrying her strike. The needle, Giovanni's little prodigy. And you are? Sophia asks, testing his defenses. Antonio Corvino. I trained with your father before everything. His blade whispers past her cheek. He was a good man. It wasn't personal, you know, just business. Something snaps inside Sophia. Not personal. She launches into a combination her father taught her, moves within moves, each strike flowing into the next. You killed him in his own home. Antonio backs away, eyes widening as he recognizes the pattern. Giovanni's rose thorns technique. He said he'd only teach it to someone worthy. He taught it to someone who loved him. Sophia's blade flashes, and Antonio's sword goes flying. She has him on his knees, knife at his throat, before he can blink. Do it, he says quietly. You've earned the right. Sophia's hand trembles. This man helped kill her father. One cut, and she'd have vengeance, but her father's voice echoes in her memory. The hardest cuts to make are the ones we choose not to. She steps back. Tell your masters something for me, Antonio. Tell them I'm not running anymore. The girl they hunted 7 years ago, she died with her father. I'm something else now, something they created. What's that? Antonio asks, rubbing his throat. Sophia's smile is cold as steel. I'm the seamstress who's going to unravel their entire empire, one stitch at a time. She disappears into the gathering darkness, leaving Antonio to gather his men. Let him carry her message back to the Corvinos. Let them know fear. Because Sophia finally understands, she doesn't have to choose between the seamstress and the assassin. She can be both, a creator and a destroyer. A weaver of beauty and a dealer of death. The road to Firenze stretches ahead, and somewhere in that city lies her father's cash, tools for the work to come. Sophia adjusts her pack, feeling the ledger's reassuring weight. Today's fight was just the beginning, a first stitch in a larger pattern. Watch me, Papa, she whispers to the stars. I'm going to make something beautiful out of all this darkness. Firenze greets Sophia with a symphony of church bells and market cries, so different from Porto Nero's seaside clamor. Dawn paints the Duomo's dome in shades of gold as she makes her way through the awakening city, her seamstress's eye noting the local fashions, anything to help her blend in. The address from her father's papers leads her to the Oltrarno district, where artisans have plied their trades for centuries. Here, among the workshops of goldsmiths and leather workers, she finds what she's looking for, a small tailor's shop with a faded sign reading, Fratelli Romano. A bell chimes as she enters. Behind the counter, an elderly man looks up from his work, his fingers stained with dye. His eyes widened in recognition. "Little Sophia," he whispers, "Giovanni's daughter." "Uncle Lorenzo," Sophia says softly, using the old term of respect, though they share no blood. "Papa said you might help me." Lorenzo Romano quickly locks the shops. "Doctor," and pulls the shades. "7 years, child. We thought you were dead." That was the idea. Sophia produces the key Madame Laurent gave her. "Papa said you'd know what to do with this." "Pay attention, Sophia," Giovanni said as they watched Lorenzo work. "The Romano family has been our allies for 3 generations. Know why?" Young Sophia shook her head, fascinated by Lorenzo's skilled hands as he worked at his dyeing vats. "Because they understand that true art serves many purposes." Giovanni picked up a length of dyed silk. "Lorenzo doesn't just make beautiful colors. He makes messages. Every shade, every pattern can tell a story to those who know how to read it." "Like a secret language?" Sophia asked. "Exactly. In our world, little needle, information are as valuable as gold, sometimes more." Lorenzo examines the key carefully. "Giovanni always planned ahead. When he sent word about your escape, he had me prepare everything. Follow me." He leads her through the back of his shop, past vats of dye and hanging fabric, to a hidden cellar. The key fits a locked chest that hasn't been touched in years. Inside, Sophia finds what she needs: money, documents, weapons, and something unexpected, a dress form exquisitely crafted with a note in her father's hand, for when you're ready to weave your revenge. "Your father commissioned it specially," Lorenzo explains. "Said his daughter would need proper tools for her work." Sophia runs her hands over the smooth wood. "The Corvinos are expanding their territory. They're in Porto Nero now." Lorenzo nods grimly. "Not just Porto Nero. They've been buying up businesses, threatening families. The old ways are dying, Sophia. The honorable families are being pushed out by thugs who only understand violence." Then, "We'll speak their language," Sophia says, "but we'll do it our way." She turns to the old dyer. "I need your help, Uncle, not just with supplies. I need information, the kind only your network can provide." Lorenzo studies her face. "You're planning something dangerous." "I'm planning to take them apart, thread by thread." Sophia produces her father's ledger. "I have their secrets. Now I need a way to use them." The old man's eyes light up with understanding. "Now I see why Giovanni wanted you to have the dress form. You're going to do more than just hide or fight. You're going to infiltrate. Sophia smiles. A seamstress can go anywhere, see anything. Nobody questions when she needs to take measurements, to spend time alone with her clients. And your dyes can carry messages hidden in plain sight, Lorenzo finishes. Just like the old days, but Sophia, you'll need more than just my help. The Corvinos are stronger than ever. I know. That's why I need you to arrange some introductions. Scene change. Later that day, the taverna is crowded with afternoon patrons, but Sophia's attention is on the woman in the corner, Lucia Bertoni, once the finest pickpocket in Naples, now owner of a string of legitimate businesses across Tuscany. Little Needle, Lucia greets her with a knowing smile. Lorenzo said you might come calling, though he didn't mention how much you've grown into your father's daughter. And he didn't mention you've grown respectable, Sophia returns, noting the quality of Lucia's dress and the knife concealed in its folds. Respectable, Lucia laughs. Let's say I've learned to balance the old ways with the new, much like you're planning to do, I suspect. Sophia leans forward. I need your network, Lucia. Your eyes and ears in places a seamstress can't go. The Corvinos have already tried to buy me out twice, Lucia says thoughtfully. When I refused, they sent men to persuade me. I had to persuade them right back. She pats the hidden knife. So yes, you have my attention. But what's your real plan? First, we gather allies, people the Corvinos have threatened or wronged. Lorenzo's network of artisans, your business contacts. Then we use my father's ledger to identify their weaknesses. And then, Sophia's smile is as sharp as a needle's point, then we give them what they fear most, legitimacy. We expose their dealings to their respectable business partners. We turn their allies against them by revealing their betrayals. We make them see shadows in every corner, a potential enemy in every friend. Lucia studies her with new respect. Not just revenge, you want to dismantle their entire organization. They killed my father because he understood something they didn't, that true power isn't in violence, but in connections, in trust, in the bonds between honorable people. Pretty words, a new voice interrupts. A man steps out of the shadows, tall, scarred, wearing the simple clothes of a craftsman. But words won't stop Corvino blades. Marco Ricci, Lucia introduces him, master blacksmith. The Corvinos tried to force him to forge weapons for them. Tried? Sophia asks. Marco holds up his hands, showing burn scars. I destroyed my forge, rather than work for them. Now I make tools for honest trades, when they let me. And if we could stop them, Sophia asks, if we could break their power permanently, then I'd want in, Marco says simply. My forge isn't the only one they've tried to corrupt. Good people are suffering because we're all fighting alone. Sophia looks at her growing circle of allies. The master dyer with his secret messages, the legitimate businesswoman with her underground contacts, the principled blacksmith with his ruined hands. This is how it begins, she realizes, not with violence, but with trust, with a shared purpose. Together then, she says, raising her glass, for those they've wronged, for those they're still threatening, for the old ways and the new. Together, they echo. As the afternoon deepens into evening, more allies gather in the taverna's back room. A silversmith whose daughter was threatened by Corvino thugs, a wine merchant whose shipments were stolen, a former guard captain was forced into retirement when he wouldn't look the other way. Each brings their own grievances, their own resources, their own determination to see the Corvinos fall. Sophia listens to their stories, weaving them together like threads in a complex pattern. With each new ally, she sees more clearly how to unravel Corvino's power. The problem isn't just their violence, the wine merchant Antonio explains. It's how they've infiltrated legitimate business. They force partnerships, then slowly take control. Before you know it, they own half your inventory and your ships are carrying their contraband. And the authorities? Sophia asks. The former. Guard Captain Renato spits in disgust. Bought and paid for most of them. The ones who won't be bought have accidents. Then we don't rely on authorities, Sophia says. She spreads a map of the region on the table. We build our own network. Lorenzo's dyes can carry messages hidden in patterns. Lucia's merchants can spread information. Marco's tools can be modified for other purposes. And what about you, Little Needle? Lucia asks. What's your role in all this? Sophia smiles. I'll be their worst nightmare, a ghost from their past moving freely among them. They'll never suspect a simple seamstress. A commotion from the main room interrupts their planning. 2 Corvino soldiers have entered the taverna, throwing their weight around. Sophia tenses, but Lucia waves her back. Watch and learn, she says. This is how we've survived so far. The soldiers demand wine, harass serving girls, make veiled threats. But Sophia notices something interesting, how the patrons communicate with subtle gestures, how information flows silently through the room. When one soldier gets too aggressive with a barmaid, he mysteriously trips. When the other reaches for his weapon, he finds his belt mysteriously loosened. The people are already resisting, Sophia realizes. They just need organization, direction. That's where your father's ledger comes in, Lorenzo says quietly. It doesn't just contain their secrets, it shows their entire operation. Supply lines, corrupt officials, hidden caches, everything we need to dismantle them piece by piece. The soldiers finally leave, and the taverna's normal atmosphere resumes. But Sophia has seen something vital, the power of ordinary people. Working together against tyranny. We'll need a workshop, she announces. Somewhere I can set up the dress form, somewhere we can all meet safely. I have a place, Marco offers. An old tannery near the river. The Corvinos think it's abandoned, but I've been maintaining it in secret. Plenty of room, multiple exits, and the smell keeps people away. Sophia nods. Perfect. Lorenzo, can you begin preparing the special dyes? We'll need a way to mark safe. Houses, identify allies. Already started, the old dyer says. I've been developing new formulas, patterns that look random but carry messages to those who know how to read them. Lucia, we'll need your people to start mapping their operations. Every warehouse, every corrupt official, every front business. Consider it done, and I'll reach out to my contacts in other cities. The Corvinos aren't just your enemy anymore. As they continue planning, Sophia feels the weight of her father's legacy. This is what he tried to teach her, that true strength isn't in weapons or violence, but in people working together. The Corvinos rule through fear, but fear can be overcome. Trust, once built, is far stronger. The night deepens and plans take shape. Sophia will need new identities, each crafted as carefully as one of her gowns. A noblewoman here, a servant there, each designed to penetrate different levels of Corvino operations. Lorenzo's dyes will mark her path, Marco's tools will arm her allies, and Lucia's network will gather intelligence. But first, she needs to establish herself in Firenze. The Corvinos will be watching for the needle, the assassin. They won't be looking for a talented young seamstress setting up a new shop, eager to make a name for herself among the city's elite. We'll need to move carefully, she warns her new allies. The Corvinos aren't fools. They'll suspect someone is organizing resistance. Let them suspect, Renato growls. They've ruled through fear long enough. No, Sophia corrects him. Let them feel secure. Let them think they've won. A good seamstress knows that the strongest seam is the one you can't see. As her allies depart, slipping away one by one to avoid attention, Sophia returns to Lorenzo's shop. The dress form awaits her, along with her father's cache of resources. Tomorrow, she'll begin creating her new identity, crafting a presence in Firenze society as carefully as she crafts a gown. But tonight, for the first time since leaving Porto Nero, she feels truly prepared. The Corvinos think they're hunting a lone assassin. Instead, they've created something far more dangerous, a symbol, a cause, a reason for good people to stand together. A needle is a small thing, she whispers, touching the weapons hidden in her sleeves. But in the right hands, with the right allies, it can create something beautiful or tear an empire apart. Lorenzo finds her measuring the dress form, her movements precise and purposeful. "Your father would be proud," he says softly, "not just of your courage, but of your wisdom. You understand what he tried to teach you, that our greatest strength lies in unity, in holding to the old codes, of honor while adapting to new times." Sophia nods, already planning her next moves. The Corvinos think power flows from the top down, through fear and violence. She'll show them a different kind of power, one that rises from the bottom up, built on trust and common cause. Let them search for the needle. They'll never see the true pattern until it's too late, until their empire unravels thread by thread, seam by seam, torn apart by the very people they thought they could rule through fear. A month passes in Firenze like silk through a needle's eye. Sophia's new shop, strategically located near the Palazzo Vecchio, quickly gains a reputation among the city's elite. Her clever designs and impeccable craftsmanship draw exactly the clientele she needs. Wives and daughters of powerful men, including several Corvino associates. Sophia stands before her workshop mirror, adjusting the fit of her latest creation, a dress for Vittoria Corvino herself, niece of the family's patriarch. The gown is a masterpiece of subtle deception, each fold and seam designed to project innocent beauty while concealing Sophia's true purpose. "Magnificent work as always, my dear," Lorenzo says from the doorway. His arms are full of newly dyed fabric, each pattern containing hidden messages for their growing network. The Corvinos still have no idea their precious ledger is right under their noses. Sophia smooths the fabric of her skirts, feeling the reassuring weight of her knives, and the ledger's familiar presence. They see what they expect to see, just another ambitious young seamstress eager to please wealthy clients. A knock at the door freezes them both. Sophia quickly helps Lorenzo hide the marked fabrics before calling out, "Come in!" Lucia enters, dressed as a prosperous merchant's wife. Her face is carefully composed, but Sophia reads tension in her bearing. "We need to talk," Lucia says quietly. "Alone." Once Lorenzo departs, Lucia produces a letter from her sleeve. "This arrived from Naples. This morning, my contact in the Corvino household. Sophia, you need to sit down for this." Sophia takes the letter, her seamstress's eyes automatically noting the quality of the paper, the distinctive seal. Then she begins to read, and the world shifts beneath her feet. The truth spills across the page in elegant handwriting. Her father's death wasn't a simple execution. The night the Corvinos came for him, they offered him a choice, join them or die. But there was more. They knew about Sophia's skills, her training. They wanted her, wanted to make her their weapon. Giovanni Castellano chose death rather than see his daughter used for their purposes. But before he died, he extracted a promise. The Corvinos would let Sophia escape, would maintain the fiction of hunting her as long as she never returned to challenge them. "They let me go," Sophia whispers, the realization hitting her like a physical blow. "All these years, thinking I escaped on my own." "There's more," Lucia says gently. Sophia forces herself to read on. The letter reveals another layer of deception. Her father wasn't working alone the night he died. He had allies within the Corvino organization itself, people who recognized the family's growing corruption and wanted to stop it. "The ledger," Sophia breathes. "It wasn't just insurance. It was a weapon meant to be used at the right time by the right person." And now we know why they're suddenly so desperate to find it, Lucia adds. The old guard is dying. The younger generation, led by Marco's faction, wants to expand aggressively. They need the Ledger's information to eliminate their internal opposition. Sophia paces the workshop, her mind racing. Every stitch of her revenge has been based on the belief that the Corvinos were purely her enemies. But if there are those within the organization who opposed her father's death, who still hold to the old codes, we need to find them, she decides. These allies my father trusted. It's risky, Lucia warns. The letter names 3, Salvatore Russo, Carmela De Luca, and Antonio Vassallo, but reaching out to them could expose our entire network. Then we do it carefully. Sophia moves to her dress form, where Vittoria's gown awaits final adjustments. Starting with this, she begins making subtle alterations to the dress, adding nearly invisible patterns that mirror those in Lorenzo's dyed fabrics. To most eyes, they'll appear as merely decorative elements, but to those who know the old codes, you're going to use their own formal events to make contact, Lucia realizes. Clever girl, the Corvinos are hosting a grand ball next week. Vittoria will wear this dress. If any of my father's allies are there, they'll recognize the signs. And if they don't, or worse, if the wrong people recognize them, Sophia's fingers never pause in their work. Then we'll know who we can trust and who we can't. Either way, we gain valuable information. As she works, Sophia's mind fills with new questions. How many other things had her father arranged? How many layers of protection and preparation had he put in place, knowing that someday she might need them? Her movements become more purposeful, each stitch carrying new meaning. The dress becomes more than a disguise. It becomes a message, a challenge, a way to separate friend from foe within the Corvino ranks. We'll need to warn our network, Lucia says. Some of them might not be happy learning there are Corvinos we might end up working with. We're not working with anyone yet, Sophia corrects her. First, we verify the letter's claims. Then we proceed carefully. Remember what my father taught me. Trust, but verify. Every alliance must be tested, like every seam must be checked. She steps back, examining her work. The alterations are perfect, invisible unless you know exactly what to look for. Just like the truth about her father's death had been invisible all these years. There's something else troubling you, Lucia observes. Sophia nods slowly. If the Corvinos kept their word about letting me escape, why start hunting me now? What's changed? Perhaps they fear you've already made contact with their internal opposition. Or perhaps there's something in the ledger even more valuable than we thought. Sophia retrieves the book from its hiding place, running her fingers over its worn cover. Something worth breaking their promise for. She begins paging through it again, reading it with new eyes. Her father's precise handwriting takes on new meaning. Each entry could be more than just a record. It could be a message meant specifically for her. Look at this, she says suddenly. These entries are about shipments from the East. They're coded differently from the rest. And the dates, she does some quick calculations. They all correspond to major changes in Corvino leadership. You think they were eliminating rivals even then? Not eliminating, Sophia corrects her. Recruiting. Look at the pattern. Each new leader brought in their own people, their own methods. The old guard was gradually pushed aside. She stands, moving to the window. Outside, Firenze goes about its business, unaware of the webs of power and deceit being woven through its streets. We need to move faster, she decides. The ball isn't just an opportunity to make contact with my father's allies. It's a chance to understand exactly what's happening within the Corvino family itself. It's dangerous, Lucia warns again. You'll be walking into the viper's nest. Sophia smiles, touching the hidden knives beneath her skirts. They expect to find a viper. They won't be looking for a spider, weaving her web right under their noses. She returns to Vittoria's dress, adding one final touch, a nearly invisible pattern worked into the hem, visible only when caught by candlelight at exactly the right angle. To most, it will appear as an artisan's signature, but to those who know the old codes, it's a message. The needle threads truth through lies. Watch for the pattern. Let the Corvinos play their games of power and deception. Sophia will play her own game, using their arrogance and expectations against them. They think they know all the players, all the pieces in motion. They don't realize that every stitch she makes, every pattern she creates, is part of a larger design, one that will reveal not just the truth about her father's death, but about the very nature of power in their world. Night falls over Firenze as Sophia continues her preparations. Her workshop becomes a hub of quiet activity as trusted allies come and go, each bringing new pieces of information. Marco arrives with detailed drawings of the Palazzo Corvino where the ball will be held. The architectural plans, borrowed from a sympathetic clerk, show every entrance, exit, and hidden passage. The main hall has been renovated, he explains, pointing to recent changes. They've added private meeting rooms here and here. My sources say the younger Corvinos use them for secret negotiations during social events. Perfect spots for quiet conversations, Sophia notes, already planning how to use this information, or for overhearing them. Renato, the former guard captain, brings word from his contacts in the city watch. Security will be heavy that night. The Corvinos are expecting representatives from other powerful families across Italy. Whatever's happening inside their organization, they're trying to project strength. Sophia's fingers trace the patterns she's working into Vittoria's dress. Then we'll use that against them. Their focus on external threats will make them blind to internal ones. A soft knock announces Lorenzo's return. The old dyer carries a small chest of specially prepared inks and dyes. These will show up under candlelight, he explains. Different colors reveal different messages. Blue for allies, red for warnings, gold for safe passages. As they work, more pieces of the puzzle emerge. Lucia's network reports increased movement of Corvino forces throughout the region. They're consolidating power, preparing for something big. The letter's revelation about internal opposition suddenly makes more sense. The family is on the verge of a power struggle. Vittoria's dress fitting is tomorrow, Sophia says, making final adjustments. That's our first test. If there are truly allies within the Corvino family, they'll need to know I'm more than just their seamstress. How will you handle the fitting itself? Lucia asks. Vittoria may be just a niece, but she's still a Corvino. Sophia holds up the dress, examining how it catches the light. I'll do what any good seamstress does. Pay attention to every detail, every reaction. Vittoria's responses to certain patterns might tell us if she's aware of the old codes. Even if she isn't, her conversation might reveal which faction her branch of the family supports. The work continues through the night. Sophia's allies help her prepare multiple contingencies. If her father's supposed allies within the Corvino family prove false, she'll need escape routes. If they're genuine, she'll need secure ways to communicate with them. Marco works at her small forge, creating special tools disguised as ordinary sewing implements. Each pin, needle, and scissor is perfectly balanced for throwing, yet appears completely innocent to casual inspection. Remember, he says, testing the edge of a particularly fine needle, these aren't just weapons. Each one is marked with specific patterns. If you need to leave a message somewhere in the palazzo, these will serve. Renato drills her on the palazzos, guard rotations, while Lucia shares detailed information about each expected guest at the ball. Every piece of information is a thread in Sophia's growing web. As dawn approaches, a message arrives from one of Lucia's watchers. Vittoria Corvino has been seen visiting a small church on the outskirts of the city, one known for helping people escape unwanted family obligations. Interesting, Sophia muses. Perhaps the niece isn't as loyal to the family as they think. Or, it's a trap, Renato warns. The Corvinos are masters of deception, then we'll be ready either way. Sophia adds one final touch to the dress, a nearly invisible pattern of roses and thorns worked into the bodice. To most eyes, it's pure decoration. But to anyone who knows the old stories, it's a clear message. Beauty conceals danger. The sun rises over Firenze as Sophia's allies depart, each with their own role to play in the coming days. She stands alone in her workshop, surrounded by the tools of both her trades, needles and knives, silk and steel, beauty and death. The dress, on its form, seems to whisper with possibilities. Each stitch contains a message, each seam holds a secret. When Vittoria Corvino wears it to the ball, she'll be unwittingly carrying Sophia's challenge into the heart of her enemy's stronghold. But first comes the fitting, and with it the first real test of Sophia's plan. Tomorrow, she'll come face with Corvino in a setting she controls. Every measurement will be precise, every adjustment perfect. And all the while, she'll be watching, evaluating, deciding whether this young woman might be an unwitting ally in her quest for truth and justice. Sophia begins preparing her fitting room, arranging everything just so. Her needles, both kinds, are placed within easy reach. Lorenzo's special threads, treated with dyes that react to certain movements, are arranged by color and purpose. Every detail matters, every preparation serves multiple purposes. The ledger rests safely in its hiding place, but its secrets fill Sophia's mind. Tomorrow, she'll begin unraveling those secrets, testing the waters of alliance and enmity within. The Corvino family. She'll discover whether her father's final gift was meant solely for vengeance, or if it holds the key to something larger, a way to restore balance and honor to a world increasingly ruled by brutality and fear. The pattern reveals itself one stitch at a time, she whispers, echoing her father's words. But now these words carry new weight, new meaning. She's no longer simply seeking revenge. She's searching for truth, for justice, for the reason behind. Years of deception and sacrifice. The morning light catches the dress's intricate needlework, making the hidden messages shimmer like secrets waiting to be discovered. Sophia allows herself a small smile. Let the Corvinos think they're in control. Let them believe their power is absolute. They're about to learn what every skilled seamstress knows. The strongest patterns are often the ones you don't see until it's too late, and the smallest needle can unravel the grandest design. The fitting room falls silent as Vittoria Corvino studies her reflection. Sophia stands ready with pins and measuring tape, watching the young woman's reaction through the mirror. The dress is perfect, each seam precise, each hidden message invisible, except to those who know where to look. It's beautiful, Vittoria breathes, turning to catch the light. The way the fabric moves. I've never seen anything like it. Sophia adjusts a fold, her fingers checking the concealed patterns. The secret is in understanding how different materials work together. Like people, some complement each other, while others tear each other apart, Vittoria suggests, meeting Sophia's eyes in the mirror. The words hang heavy with meaning. Before Sophia can respond, shouts erupt from the street. Through the window, she sees smoke rising from the direction of Lorenzo's shop. Her heart stops. This wasn't part of the plan. Stay here, she tells Vittoria, but the girl is already moving toward the door. I'm sorry, Vittoria says softly. They found out about the meeting, about Lorenzo's messages. Sophia's world narrows to a knife's edge of understanding. The patterns in the dress weren't just recognized, they were expected. She's been playing into their hands from the start. The workshop door bursts open. Corvino soldiers pour in, led by a face she hasn't seen in years. Dominic Corvino, the family's spy master. His scarred face twists in a smile. The prodigal needle returns, he says. Though I must admit your seamstress act was quite convincing. We might never have known if dear Vittoria hadn't recognized your father's old codes. Sophia's hands find her hidden knives, but she's already calculating the cost. Too many soldiers, too many innocent people in the street who could be caught in the crossfire. Lorenzo's shop is just the beginning, Dominic continues. Right now, my men are visiting all your little friends. The blacksmith, the wine merchant, the former guard captain. Did you really think we wouldn't find them? You're lying, Sophia says, but doubt creeps in. They knew about Lorenzo. What else did they discover? Am I? Shall we compare notes? He produces a familiar piece of paper, Lucia's letter about her father. Such a convincing forgery. It almost worked too. You were questioning everything, didn't you? The realization hits Sophia like a physical blow. Everything. The letter, the supposed internal allies, even her careful infiltration of Corvino society, it was all orchestrated. They let her build her network just to identify everyone who might oppose them. Why, she demands. Why such an elaborate trap? Because of what you carry, Dominic says. That ledger contains more than just our secrets. It contains evidence of a conspiracy that goes beyond family rivalries. Your father discovered something that could tear apart not just our organization, but the very foundations of power in Italy. You're wrong about one thing, Sophia says, her voice steady despite the chaos in her heart. This wasn't just about the ledger. She moves like liquid lightning. Her first knife takes out the lamp, plunging the room into shadow. Her second cuts the dress's strategic seams, transforming it from an elegant gown into a weapon. The specially treated fabric reacts with Lorenzo's dyes, releasing a cloud of disorienting powder. Chaos erupts. Sophia fights her way through the soldiers with brutal efficiency, but she can't help counting the cost. Every ally she's made, every connection she's built, all of them now in danger because of her. She makes it to the street, just in time to see Lorenzo's shop engulfed in flames. People scream and run, but she sees no sign of the old dyer. Her heart constricts, but she forces herself to focus. She can't help anyone if she's captured. The sound of fighting draws her attention. Down the street, Marco's forge rings with the clash of steel on steel. He's holding his own against Corvino thugs, but he's badly outnumbered. Sophia starts toward him, but movement on the rooftops makes her hesitate. More soldiers are positioning themselves, cutting off escape routes. This isn't just an attack. It's a coordinated operation to destroy her entire network. A hand grabs her arm. It's Lucia, her fine clothes torn and bloodied. We have to go, now. The others are either dead or captured. The Corvinos were waiting for this. They've been watching us all along, letting us lead them to everyone who might resist them. Sophia's mind races. Every connection she's made, every person she's drawn into her plans, she's painted targets on all their backs. The weight of it threatens to crush her. But she's her father's daughter. Even as part of her dies inside, another part is already planning, calculating, looking for ways to turn this disaster into opportunity. The tannery, she says. If anyone survives, they'll head there. It was their emergency rendezvous point, chosen for exactly this kind of situation. They move through the chaos-filled streets, using the confusion to their advantage. Sophia's mind catalogues every detail, every glimpse of familiar faces in the crowd. Who's been taken? Who might have escaped? Each missing ally is another wound, another weight on her conscience. The tannery stands silent when they arrive. No signs of fighting, no signs of survivors, just empty space where hope used to live. We should keep moving, Lucia urges. They'll check here eventually. But Sophia remains still, her seamstress's eye taking in subtle details. The dust on the floor is disturbed in familiar patterns. Someone has been here recently and left a message only she would recognize. Near the old tanning vats, barely visible in the dim light, she finds Marco's mark scratched into the wood. Not a desperate last message, but a deliberate sign. He made it out, and beneath his mark more scratches, a crude representation of Lorenzo's special pattern for East. Some survived, she tells Lucia. They're following the backup plan. And the others? The ones the Corvinos took? Sophia's hand tightens on her knife. We'll get them back. But first, we need to understand what's really happening. Why would the Corvinos go to such lengths, risk exposing themselves with such a public attack? The ledger is only part of it. Dominic said my father discovered something bigger, something that threatens more than just the Corvinos. She pulls the book from its hiding place. Everything we need to know is here. We just haven't been reading it correctly. Lucia studies her face. What are you thinking? I'm thinking it's time to stop playing by their rules. They wanted to destroy my network? Fine. I'll build a new one, but this time I won't be so gentle. They wanted to make this personal. They succeeded. She tears a strip from her ruined dress, one of the few pieces still marked with Lorenzo's special dyes. In the fading light, the pattern shifts, revealing one last message from her old friend. Remember the needle's true strength. Sophia allows herself one moment of grief for all that's been lost. Then she straightens, her face hardening into something new, something that would make even the Corvinos hesitate. They think they've won, she says quietly. They think they've broken us, but they forgot something important. What's that? Sophia's smile is sharp as a blade's edge. A needle doesn't just join pieces together. Sometimes it has to tear things apart before it can make something new, and I'm very, very good at what I do. The tannery's shadows deepen as Sophia begins gathering what supplies remain. Each abandoned tool, each left-behind weapon tells a story of hasty escape or violent capture. At a workbench, she finds Renato's guard captain insignia, dropped in. What must have been a fierce struggle. Nearby, a broken bottle of Marco's special oil, the kind he used to temper his finest blades. They're moving the prisoners toward the Corvino estate, Lucia reports, returning from a quick reconnaissance. Heavy guard presence throughout the city. They're not even trying to be subtle anymore. Because they don't need to be, Sophia says. Examining a torn piece of fabric caught on a nail. The material is from Lorenzo's shop. She'd know his work anywhere. This was never about just catching me. They're making a statement. Anyone who opposes them will be destroyed. She retrieves her father's ledger from its hiding place and begins turning its pages with a new purpose. All this time, we've been reading it wrong. Looking for names, dates, transactions, but my father was smarter than that. What do you mean? Sophia spreads the pages across a workbench. Look at the pattern of the entries, the way certain names appear and disappear. It's not just about the Corvinos' criminal empire, it's about who they answer to. She points to a series of seemingly ordinary shipping records. These destinations, they don't exist. They're code for something else, something that scared my father enough to create this entire elaborate system of protection. A noise outside freezes them both. Footsteps approach, multiple sets, trying to be quiet and not quite succeeding. Sophia and Lucia move to defensive positions, weapons ready. The door creaks open. A figure slips in. Elena, Sophia's former apprentice from Porto Nero, her face streaked with soot and tears. Miss Sophia, she gasps. They're burning everything. The whole artisan quarter. Lorenzo, he told me to find you before they... Sophia catches the girl as her legs give out. What happened? Tell me everything. Through broken sobs, Elena reveals the full scope of the Corvinos' attack. It wasn't just Sophia's allies they targeted. It was anyone who might have skills or knowledge useful to resistance. Craftsmen, merchants, former soldiers. Some were arrested, others simply disappeared. Lorenzo knew they were coming. Eleanor continues. He had time to destroy his dye formulas, but he wouldn't leave. Said someone had to make sure the fire spread right, had to make sure certain things burned completely. Sophia closes her eyes briefly, honoring her old friend's sacrifice. Lorenzo had understood. Some secrets were worth dying to protect. There's more, Elena whispers. I overheard the soldiers talking. They're not just arresting people, they're recruiting them. Anyone with useful skills is being offered a choice: work for the Corvinos or watch their families suffer. Recruiting for what? Something big. They kept talking about the project and how time was running out. Sophia turns back to the ledger, seeing the patterns with new clarity. The coded shipping records, the strange disappearances, the sudden urgency of the Corvinos' actions, it all points to something much larger than family politics. They're building something, she realizes, something that requires skilled craftsmen, something they need to complete on a deadline. That's why they moved against us now. That's why they couldn't risk any organized resistance. Lucia peers at the ledger entries Sophia indicates. These numbers, they're not shipment weights, are they? No, they're coordinates. My father was mapping something, tracking the pieces of whatever the Corvinos are creating. And now we know why they want this ledger so badly, Lucia finishes. It's not just evidence of their crimes, it's the key to understanding their entire plan. More footsteps outside, too many to fight. Sophia quickly gathers the ledger and essential supplies. We need to move. Elena, do you remember the old smugglers' tunnels beneath the city? The girl nods. Lorenzo made me memorize the routes, said I might need them someday. Good. Take Lucia through them. Head east, toward the mountains. Anyone who escaped will be gathering at the old monastery. What about you? Sophia checks her. Weapons one last time. I'm going to create a distraction, give our people a chance to get clear of the city. That's suicide, Lucia protests. The Corvinos have men everywhere. They're looking for the needle, the assassin. They won't be watching for a simple seamstress. Sophia pulls out a bundle of plain clothing, the kind worn by traveling merchants. Besides, I need to confirm something. These arrests, this project they're planning, it all connects to whatever my father discovered. And I think I know where to start looking. She hands Elena a small package wrapped in oilcloth. Get this to Marco. If he made it out, he'll know what to do with it. Inside the package is a piece of the dress she made for Vittoria, carefully cut to preserve the hidden patterns. In Lorenzo's special dyes, it contains not just messages, but a key to decoding the ledger's deeper secrets. Sophia, Lucia says softly, your father didn't just give you this ledger for safekeeping, did he? He was preparing you for this moment, training you not just to fight, but to understand. Yes, Sophia answers, the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. And now I finally see why. This isn't just about revenge anymore. It's about stopping whatever the Corvinos are building, whatever was terrible enough to make my father sacrifice everything to prevent it. She hugs Elena quickly, clasps Lucia's hand, then she slips into her merchant's disguise and steps out into the chaos-filled streets of Firenze. Behind her, the tannery stands as a silent testament to all she's lost. Ahead lies uncertainty, danger, and the chance to uncover a truth worth dying for. Let the Corvinos think they've won. Let them believe they've scattered her allies and broken her network. They don't understand what her father taught her, that the strongest patterns are made from broken threads, and that sometimes the most devastating weapon is not the knife that kills, but the needle that slowly, carefully, inexorably unravels everything they've built. The old monastery rises from the mountain mists like a ghost of better days. Sophia approaches cautiously, noting signs only another Castellano would recognize, subtle marks on trees, arrangements of stones that tell her she's on the right path. Her merchant's disguise has served her well, letting her move through Corvino. Patrols like a shadow. Inside the monastery's crumbling walls, she finds the survivors. Marco tends a small forge in what was once a kitchen, crafting new tools from salvaged metal. Renato, wounded but alive, drills a handful of escaped craftsmen in basic defense. In the chapel, Lucia works with Elena, teaching her Lorenzo's codes. 17. Marco reports without looking up from his work. That's all who made it out. The rest are either dead or in Corvino hands. Sophia sets down her pack, exhausted from 3 days of careful travel and constant vigilance. Any word from our other contacts? Some. The Corvino's purge wasn't limited to Firenze. They moved against potential resistance in every major city. But their focus... He points to a map spread across a makeshift table. Every arrest, every raid centers around places with skilled craftsmen, especially metal workers and engineers, like your forge. Not just mine, they're gathering people with very specific skills. Whatever they're building, it's big, complex. Sophia unrolls her father's ledger, its pages now marked with her own notes and observations. Look at this pattern. The coordinates we thought pointed to multiple locations, they're all focusing on a single point. She indicates a spot in the mountains, far from any major city. Something's being assembled there. That's Corvino hunting territory, Renato says, joining them. Supposedly private land, but there's been unusual traffic lately. Wagons moving at night, strange sounds. Sophia traces the route from their location to the mysterious site. We need to know what they're building. More importantly, we need to free our people before they're forced to help build it. How? Marco demands. We're 17 against an army, and that's assuming none of the captives break under pressure. They won't need to break them, Lucia says grimly. The Corvinos know exactly how to ensure cooperation. They've taken families, children. No artisan will risk their loved ones, no matter how strong their principles. Sophia studies the map, her mind working like it does when planning a complex dress pattern. Each piece must fit perfectly, each element serving multiple purposes. Then we don't fight their army, she says slowly. We take away their leverage. In quiet moments, she studies the ledger's remaining pages, finding new layers of meaning in her father's careful notes. The project the Corvinos are building isn't just a threat to their region. It's something that could shift the balance of power across all of Italy. This is what you were trying to prevent, she whispers to her father's memory. This is why you made sure the ledger would reach the right hands at the right time. As the first day of preparation ends, Sophia stands at the monastery's highest window, looking toward the distant lights of Firenze. Somewhere in that city, people she cares about are suffering, being forced to create something terrible. But not for long. Let the Corvinos think they've won. Let them believe they're brutal. Efficiency has crushed all resistance. They don't understand what Sophia has learned through years of working with the finest materials, that true strength isn't in the individual threads, but in how they're woven together. And she's about to show them just how strong her network can be, even when it appears to be in tatters. Everything goes wrong at midnight. The plan had been unfolding perfectly. Marco's special tools, disguised as common implements, passed through Corvino security without raising suspicion. Lucia's network successfully spread the rumors that sent patrols exactly where Sophia wanted them. Even Elena's innocent appearance served its purpose, letting her move freely through the marketplace, gathering intelligence. Sophia herself had taken the greatest risk, allowing herself to be glimpsed just enough times to make the Corvinos believe they were closing in on the ledger. Each sighting drew more guards away from the villa where the hostages were held. But now, as she crouches in the shadows near the villa's servants' entrance, Sophia watches their carefully orchestrated plan collapse like poorly sewn seams. The patrol patterns have changed, Renato whispers urgently. They're not following the schedule we mapped out. That's impossible, Sophia responds. We verified the rotations ourselves. Unless... The realization hits her just as bells begin tolling across the city. Not the usual midnight bells, but the urgent peal that signals emergency. In the distance, flames rise from the direction of their designated escape route. Someone talked, Renato growls. Someone warned them. Sophia's mind races, reviewing every detail of their preparation. Who knew enough of the plan to compromise it? Who had the opportunity to contact the Corvinos? A bird calls signals from the villa's roof. Marco's warning that something's wrong inside as well. The hostages aren't in their expected location. The entire layout they'd carefully mapped has been altered. Pull back, Sophia orders. Get word to everyone. Abort the... An arrow thuds into the wall beside her head. Not a Corvino arrow. This one bears the distinctive fletching Marco designed. For their own people. Attached to it is a message written in Lorenzo's special ink. The words make her blood run cold. Isabella betrayed us. Run. Isabella, her father's old supplier, the woman who provided crucial materials for their plan. Who knew their methods, their codes, their hiding places? Who had access to everything except the ledger, Sophia breathes. She wanted the ledger all along. More arrows rain down, but these are Corvino shafts. Sophia and Renato dive for cover as guards emerge from hidden positions. Their escape routes are cut off, their carefully planned distractions now working against them. The monastery, Renato says urgently. If Isabella talked, Elena and Lucia are there with the wounded, along with the real ledger. Sophia's fingers find her throwing knives. Go, warn them. I'll create a diversion. That's not a diversion you're planning, he argues. It's revenge. Someone has to pay for this betrayal. Now go. Sophia steps out of hiding, her merchant's disguise falling away to reveal fighting clothes carefully designed for this moment. Each seam contains a hidden weapon. Each fold conceals a surprise for anyone who gets too close. Looking for me? She calls out to the gathering guards. Come on then, let's make this interesting. She throws her first knife with deadly accuracy, but not at the guards. Instead, she targets a specific roof tile Marco had prepared, triggering a cascade of carefully placed devices. Smoke bombs fill the courtyard. Chemical reactions create confusion and chaos. In the mayhem, Sophia moves like a deadly shadow. Each strike is precise, each movement calculated. She's not trying to kill. She needs them alive to spread the word, to draw attention away from her true target, because Isabella wouldn't have betrayed them just for money. No, the master supplier who'd worked with her father would only switch. Besides, if she was involved in something bigger, something worth risking everything for. Sophia fights her way through the guards, moving steadily toward the villa's private wing. If Isabella truly knew their methods, truly understood their codes, she'd be watching from somewhere with a clear view of both the action and potential escape routes. A flicker of movement in an upper window confirms her theory. For just a moment, she glimpses a familiar silhouette, Isabella watching the chaos unfold. More guards approach, but now Sophia notes something odd about their movements. These aren't ordinary Corvino soldiers. They move with a precision that speaks of special training, wielding weapons that seem subtly different from standard issue. So that's it, she whispers, understanding dawning. Isabella isn't just betraying us to the Corvinos. She's working with whoever they're building their secret project for. A guard gets close enough to engage her directly. Sophia flows around his attack like water, her father's training turning deadly combat into a deadly dance. But even as she fights, her mind works on the larger pattern emerging, the specially trained guards, the mysterious project, Isabella's betrayal, her father's warnings in the ledger. All of it points to something far more dangerous than mere family rivalries. Fall back, a voice commands. Let her escape. The order makes Sophia hesitate. Why would they? Too late. She sees the trap. The guards weren't trying to capture her. They were herding her toward a specific location, toward the very place Isabella would have told them to drive her. The ground beneath her feet suddenly shifts. A cleverly concealed trap door opens, and Sophia feels herself falling. But even as she drops, she turns the fall into a controlled descent, her hands finding purchase on hidden edges. She lands in darkness, but her other senses paint a clear picture. The space is man-made, recently constructed. The air carries traces of familiar scents, metal, chemicals, the same materials Isabella had been supplying. "Welcome, little needle," Isabella's voice echoes from above. "I truly am sorry about this. Your father was a good man. He just didn't understand the bigger picture." "And you do?" Sophia calls back, buying time as she orients herself. "I understand. That change is coming. The Corvinos, their petty power struggles, they're just the surface. What's being built here will reshape everything. Your father tried to stop it. You could help us complete it. By betraying everything he died for? By being part of something greater." A light flares, revealing Isabella standing on a walkway. Above, behind her, Sophia glimpses something massive and metallic before the light dims again. "Think about it, my dear. I'll give you time. About as long as it takes your friends to realize you're missing and return to the monastery. Where I believe you left the real ledger, the threat is clear. While Sophia is trapped here, Isabella's allies will be moving against her surviving friends. Against Elena, against the wounded, against everyone who trusted her plan. But Isabella has made a crucial mistake. She assumes Sophia will react like an assassin, focused on escape and revenge. She doesn't understand what Sophia learned as a seamstress, that sometimes the strongest position is to stay exactly where you are, because now Sophia is exactly where she needs to be. In the heart of the Corvino's secret project, surrounded by evidence of what they're building, everything she needs to understand and expose their plans. "You're right about one thing," Sophia calls up to Isabella. "I am going to be part of something greater, just not what you're expecting." She reaches into her clothes and removes a small packet, the real reason she let herself be driven here. Inside is the last of Lorenzo's special dye, prepared according to his final instructions. Let Isabella think she's won. Let her believe Sophia is trapped and helpless. She doesn't understand that sometimes the most devastating weapon isn't the knife that strikes, but the dye that reveals what was meant to stay hidden. In the darkness beneath the villa, Sophia begins her work. She may have lost this battle, but she's exactly where she needs to be to win the war. And this time, there will be no mercy for those who chose the wrong side. The holding cells beneath the villa form a maze of iron and stone. Sophia stumbles as the guards shove her into a cramped cell, her body aching from their rough handling. But pain is nothing compared to what she sees in the dim light, filtering through the grate above. Dozens of faces stare back at her from neighboring cells. Craftsmen, artisans, engineers, all the missing people from Firenze and beyond. Their hands bear the marks of forced labor, their eyes the hollow look of those who've watched their skills turn to terrible purpose. "The prodigal needle joins us at last," a familiar voice says. From the shadows of the adjacent cell emerges Antonio, the master glassblower who had helped plan their rescue attempt. His once proud bearing is bent with exhaustion and guilt. "Come, to see what your rebellion has cost us." "Antonio, 3 more families taken this morning," he cuts her off. "Children as young as 6, dragged from their beds because their parents dared to hope your plan would free them." The words cut deeper than any blade. Around the cells, other prisoners turn away, their silence heavy with accusation. These are the people she swore to protect, the ones who trusted her strategy, her leadership. "It gets worse," Antonio continues, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Isabella sent riders to the monastery. By now—" Sophia's heart stops. "Elena, the wounded, the ledger." "The ledger they'll find is a fake," a new voice says. Marco steps into view from another cell, his massive frame diminished by captivity, but his eyes still fierce. "I switched them before they took me. The real one is safe." Relief wars with fresh guilt in Sophia's chest. Marco must have realized something was wrong, must have acted to protect their most valuable asset. But at what cost? "How many?" she asks, dreading the answer. 8 dead in the ambush. 3 of our wounded. The rest, Marco's voice catches. The rest were taken, like us, put to work on their machine. Sophia presses her forehead against the cold iron bars. Everything she planned, every careful preparation has led to this moment. Her allies captured or dead, their families hostage, their skills being used to create something monstrous. Tell us, Needle, Antonio says bitterly. Was it worth it? All this suffering, all these lives destroyed? Was your revenge worth the price we've paid? This isn't about revenge, Sophia replies, but the words sound hollow even to her. How many decisions had been colored by her desire to strike back at the Corvinos? How many risks had she taken with other people's lives? A guard's bootsteps echo. On the stone stairs, the prisoners retreat into shadows, a well-practiced movement that speaks of frequent abuse. But instead of a guard, Isabella appears, carrying a lantern that casts dancing shadows through the bars. Feeling more cooperative? She asks Sophia. Now that you've seen the consequences of resistance? Sophia says nothing, but her mind races. Something in Isabella's tone, in her careful choice of words. Still silent. Perhaps this will loosen your tongue. Isabella signals, and guards drag forward a struggling figure. Elena, her face bruised but her spirit unbroken. Your former apprentice proved quite resourceful. It took us hours to catch her. Let her go, Sophia says, the words torn from her throat. She knows nothing. Oh, but she knows everything that matters. Where the real ledger is hidden. Who helped you escape Firenze? Every detail of your pathetic resistance. Isabella strokes Elena's cheek almost tenderly. Children are so easy to break. The threat hangs in the air like poison. Around the cells, craftsmen who've watched their own children used as leverage turn away, unable to bear witnessing another such moment. You won't touch her, Sophia says, her voice carrying absolute certainty. Isabella laughs. And how will you stop me? You're trapped, disarmed, surrounded by guards. Your allies are captured or dead. Your plans are in ruins. You have nothing left. Sophia straightens, letting her seamstress's mask fall away completely. When she speaks, her voice carries an edge that makes even the guards step back. I have everything I need, she says softly. I have your machine's weaknesses mapped in my mind. I have the loyalty of every craftsman you've enslaved. And I have the one thing you'll never understand, the knowledge that some things are worth dying for. She reaches into her hair and removes a final needle. Not a weapon, but a key, one of Marco's masterworks, disguised as a simple hairpin. Before anyone can react, she's unlocked her cell. The next moments are a blur of violence. Sophia moves. Like death itself, each strike precise and devastating. Guards fall before they can raise their weapons. Isabella backs away, her composure cracking for the first time. Stop her! She screams. The machine! She'll destroy everything! But Sophia isn't heading for the machine. Instead, she throws herself at Elena's guards, creating the chaos her apprentice needs to slip free. Their eyes meet for just a moment, long enough for Sophia to silently convey vital instructions. Elena runs, carrying with her not just her own freedom, but the hope of everyone in these cells. Because Sophia has just given her something more precious than the ledger. She's given her the knowledge of how to destroy the machine, encoded in the very way she moved during the fight. More guards pour down the stairs. Sophia allows herself to be overwhelmed, to be beaten back into her cell. Let them think they've won again. Let them believe she acted out of desperate rage. They don't understand that this moment, this apparent defeat, is exactly what she needed. Because now, Eleanor knows. Now the girl who learned to read patterns in fabric and movement understands exactly how the machine can be unmade. The price is Sophia herself. She will not leave these cells again except to die. But as she catches the eyes of her fellow prisoners, she sees something rekindling in them. Not hope. Hope is too fragile for what lies ahead. No, what burns in their eyes now is determination. Isabella orders extra guards, extra restraints. She even has Sophia blindfolded, afraid of what secrets her gaze might convey to the other prisoners. But it's too late. The pattern is set. The players are in motion. And Sophia, who learned from her father that sometimes the greatest victories require the greatest sacrifices, allows herself a small smile in the darkness. Let them think they've broken her. Let them believe their machine is safe. They don't understand that every needle she carried, every move she made, was part of a larger design, one that will unravel their plans thread by thread, gear by gear, life by life. The holding cells fall silent except for the distant thrum of the machine. But in that silence something new is building, something that began with a seamstress's understanding of patterns and an assassin's knowledge of weakness, something that will end with either liberation or destruction. Sophia settles into her restraints, counting breaths, measuring time. She thinks of Elena running through the night, carrying the key to everything. She thinks of the craftsmen around her, each one now understanding their role in what's to come. And in the darkness behind her blindfold, she begins to plan the final pattern, one that will either free them all or destroy everything in the attempt. 3 days pass in darkness. Sophia's world narrows to the rhythm of guard changes, the distant clanking of the machine, and the whispered conversations of fellow prisoners. Her body aches from the restraints, but her mind remains sharp, counting seconds, measuring patterns in the guards' movements. The blindfold becomes her advantage. Unable to see, her other senses heighten. She learns to identify guards by their footsteps, to gauge the machine's progress by its changing sounds. Most importantly, she learns the precise moment when Isabella visits each morning to oversee the prisoners' work assignments. On the 4th morning, something changes. The machine's rhythm falters, just slightly. Most wouldn't notice, but to Sophia's trained ear, it's like a dropped stitch in perfect fabric. "What's happening?" a guard demands. "Why is it slowing?" "The alignment is off," Marco answers from his cell. "The main gear assembly needs adjustment." "Fix it," Isabella's voice commands. "Now!" Sophia allows herself a small smile behind her blindfold. Right on schedule. The guards unlock Marco's cell, lead him to the machine. His heavy steps echo on the metal walkway. 1, 2, 3, 4. A pause. Then the sound of tools on metal. "Well?" Isabella demands. "The teeth are wearing unevenly," Marco reports. "Poor quality steel. If we continue running it like this, the whole assembly could shatter." Sophia counts Isabella's pacing steps. The woman's composure is cracking. She knows her foreign allies are coming to inspect the machine soon. Any delay could be disastrous. "Get more workers," Isabella orders. "I want every gear checked, every joint inspected. No more sabotage, no more accidents. More cells open, more craftsmen led out." Sophia keeps counting, mapping each person's position by sound alone. The pattern is building just as she planned. A new sound reaches her ears. Boots on stone, many sets. The foreign allies have arrived early. Their harsh language echoes off the walls as they inspect the machine. "Remove her blindfold," Isabella suddenly commands. "Let her see what her defiance has accomplished." Rough hands tear away the cloth. Sophia blinks in the harsh lamplight, but her eyes adjust quickly. The scene before her is exactly as she imagined from sound alone. The massive machine dominating the chamber, craftsmen positioned at key points, guards watching with weapons. Ready? The foreign officers walk the catwalks, examining every detail. Their uniforms are unfamiliar, their bearing military, but Sophia's attention is on something else. The subtle changes in the machine since her capture. Tiny adjustments, microscopic flaws, each one contributed by a different craftsman. Impressive, isn't it? Isabella approaches Sophia's cell. "Even with your interference, we're nearly ready. Once it's complete, no one will be able to resist us. Mechanical perfection will ensure absolute control." You still don't understand, Sophia says, quietly. Control isn't perfection. Neither is fear. No, Isabella gestures at the prisoners. Look at them, the finest craftsmen in Italy, brought to heel by simple leverage. Their family's safety purchases their cooperation. The machine purchases their obedience. What could be more perfect? Sophia's chains rattle as she stands. Every guard tenses, weapons raising, but she simply moves to the bars. You want to see perfection. Look closer. Look at what they've actually built for you. Something in her tone makes Isabella hesitate. The foreign officers stop their inspection, turning to watch. Marco, Sophia calls out. Show them your master. Work! The big blacksmith straightens from his position at the gear assembly. The main drive shaft, he says clearly, composed of layered steel, each layer tempered differently. Under normal stress it holds, but when the pressure builds, he reaches for a lever. Stop him! Isabella shouts, but it's too late. The lever pulls. Metal screams. The massive gear assembly shudders as hidden stresses finally find release. All around the machine, other craftsmen reach for other controls, other levers, other carefully prepared weak points. You see, Sophia continues as chaos erupts, true perfection isn't in the machine. It's in the craftsmen who built it. In their skill, their dedication, their ability to work together even in captivity. For 3 days they've made adjustments, each one small, each one seemingly innocent, but together the machine shrieks, gears crack, steam pipes rupture. Guards rush to stop the destruction, but they don't know which lever to pull, which valve to close. Only the craftsmen understand the pattern of destruction they've woven into the very heart of the machine. Impossible, Isabella breathes. We watch them. Every moment, every adjustment, like a seamstress hiding messages in patterns, Sophia says. The flaws were always there, built in from the start. We just needed the right moment, the right sequence. More guards pour in, but now they face resistance from every direction. Craftsmen grab tools, improvised weapons, anything at hand. The foreign officers shout orders, trying to regain control. And through it all, the machine tears itself apart. Sophia's lock clicks open. Picked by Antonio during the chaos, his glassmaker's delicate touch perfect for the task. She steps out of her cell just as Isabella draws a pistol. I'll kill you, the older woman snarls. All of this work, all of this planning was built on a false foundation, Sophia finishes. You thought you could control art through fear. But true craft, true mastery, it can't be forced. It has to be given freely. Isabella's finger tightens on the trigger, but before she can fire, something small and bright arcs through the air, striking her hand. A thrown needle, perfectly placed. Sophia spins to see Elena standing in a doorway. More. Needles ready. Behind her come Lucia, Renato, and dozens of others. The resistance, reformed and returned. The monastery? Sophia asks as Elena hands her weapons. Empty when they arrived, her apprentice answers with a fierce grin. Just like you planned. We gathered everyone who escaped, everyone who could fight. Waited for your signal. Signal? The machine's rhythm is changing. Just like you taught me, patterns tell stories if you know how to read them. Pride fills Sophia's heart. Even in apparent defeat, her lessons took root. Even in darkness, her plans bore fruit. The battle that follows is brutal but brief. The guards, facing unexpected resistance from both prisoners and rescuers, begin to retreat. The foreign officers, seeing their precious machine destroying itself, abandon their allies. And Isabella, wounded but defiant, finds herself surrounded by the very craftsmen she tried to enslave. "Kill me then!" She spits at Sophia. "Complete your revenge." Sophia picks up her enemy's fallen pistol, studies it thoughtfully. This isn't about revenge anymore. It's about justice, about making sure no one else suffers for your ambitions. She turns to her fellow craftsmen. The choice is yours. What shall we do with those who tried to turn our skills to evil purposes? The answer comes not in violence, but in the quiet authority of master artisans. They bind Isabella and her surviving guards, not with chains, but with ropes woven by guild-trained hands. They document every crime, every threat, every forced labor with the same precision they use in their crafts. As the machine gives one final devastating shriek behind them, Sophia looks at the faces around her. No longer defeated prisoners, but proud craftsmen reclaiming their dignity. Not through revenge, but through the very skills their captors tried to corrupt. What now? Elena asks, helping Sophia gather evidence of the foreign conspiracy. Sophia touches the hidden pocket where the real ledger rests, delivered back to her by Elena's clever hands. Now we make sure this never happens again. We build something new, something stronger than fear. A new guild, Marco suggests, one that protects our secrets, our families. More than that, Sophia says, a network of craftsmen united not by force but by choice, ready to stand against anyone who would turn our skills to darkness. As dawn breaks above their underground battlefield, Sophia begins to see the pattern of what's to come. Not a story of revenge, but one of resurrection. Not just of victory, but of transformation. She is no longer simply the needle, the assassin seeking vengeance. She has become something more, a leader who understands that true power lies not in weapons or machines, but in the bonds between people who choose to stand together. Spring blooms in Firenze, painting the city in colors that remind Sophia of Lorenzo's finest dyes. The rebuilt artisan quarter bustles with life and purpose, each workshop now bearing a subtle mark, a needle crossed with a blade, worked into the architecture itself. Sophia stands in her new shop, larger than her old one in Porto Nero, watching. Apprentices learn both needlecraft and self-defense. Elena moves among them, now a teacher in her own right, showing young hands how to hide strength in beauty, protection in art. The last of Isabella's foreign contacts have been identified. Lucia reports, entering with her usual quiet grace. The evidence from your father's ledger, combined with what we salvaged from the machine, was enough to expose the entire conspiracy. And the Corvinos? Finished. Their allies have abandoned them, their operations exposed. Those who survived are fleeing Italy, leaving their holdings to be claimed by honest merchants and craftsmen. Sophia nods, satisfied but not triumphant. Victory has taught her the price of celebration, the weight of responsibility that comes with power. The shop's back room has been transformed into something new, a gathering place for guild leaders, a center for the network she's built from the ashes of conflict. Maps cover the walls, marked with the locations of allied workshops, each one a potential safe house, each craftsman a potential defender of their shared values. Marco enters, his forge-scarred hands now bearing rings of authority, symbols of his position as master of the Metalworkers Guild. The new security protocols are in place, he reports. Every guild member knows the signs, the codes. No one works against their will now. No one's family needs to fear midnight visits. And, are friends in the government? Sophia asks. Learning to appreciate the value of organized craftsmen, Renato answers, joining them. The former guard captain now coordinates between the guilds and the city authorities. Amazing how quickly attitudes change when artisans unite. Sophia moves to her workbench, where a special project awaits. The fabric is the finest silk, dyed with Lorenzo's last formulas now preserved and passed down to trusted apprentices. But the patterns worked into it carry more than beauty. The old ways and the new, she murmurs, continuing her careful stitching, combined to protect what matters most. The door chimes as more visitors arrive. Guild masters from across Italy come to discuss the growing network of allied craftsmen. Each bears stories of attempted corruption, of threats overcome, of communities defending their independence. They're calling it the Artisans' League, Elena reports proudly. From Venice to Naples, workshops are adopting our methods, not just for protection, but for preservation of true craft. Sophia studies the faces around her. Elena's fierce determination, Lucia's subtle strength, Marco's steadfast loyalty, Renato's watchful dedication. Each one changed by their shared struggle, each one now committed to something larger than themselves. My father believed that true power lies in connections, she tells them, not in fear or force, but in trust between people who share values. He died protecting that belief. We honor him by building on it. She reveals her workbench project, a banner for the new league, its design incorporating elements from every craft. But worked into its patterns are messages only initiates can, red warnings and promises hidden in plain sight. Beautiful, Elena breathes, recognizing Sophia's finest work, both the visible and the hidden. Like all of us, Sophia agrees, we show the world our craft, our dedication to beauty and function, but we maintain our strength, our readiness to defend what matters. A commotion outside draws their attention. A group of children races past the window, playing with wooden swords, but Sophia notes their movements, already incorporating the basic defensive forms taught in guild workshops, learning through play, as she once learned from her father. We've had inquiries from other countries, Lucia mentions, craftsmen seeking to join our network, to learn our methods of organization and protection. Are we ready for that kind of expansion? Renato asks. Sophia considers carefully. Growth must come naturally, like the development of skill. We'll welcome those who share our values, who understand that craft is about more than profit or power. She moves to the shop's front window, watching the life of the artisan quarter unfold. Apprentices hurry on errands, carrying messages hidden in patterns. Masters discuss techniques that serve multiple purposes. Families walk without fear, protected by a network of vigilant craftsmen. We're building something unique, she tells her inner circle. Not just a guild or a defense league. We're preserving a way of life that values both beauty and strength, both tradition and progress. Elena joins her at the window. What would your father think of all this? He'd understand, Sophia says softly. He knew that some things are worth dying for, but more importantly, he knew that some things are worth living for, worth building, worth protecting, worth passing on. The afternoon light catches the banner's subtle patterns, making hidden messages shimmer. Like the network itself, visible yet secret, beautiful yet dangerous, preserving the best of the old while embracing the necessary new. A young girl enters the shop, carrying fabric for her first lesson. Sophia recognizes the look in her eyes. The same determination she once had, learning her father's dual crafts. Are you ready to begin? Sophia asks the child. Yes, Mistress Sophia, the girl answers eagerly. I want to learn everything, both the needle and the blade. Sophia exchanges glances with her companions. They all recognize the moment's significance. Another generation taking up their dual legacy, ensuring their ways will continue. Then let's start with the basics, Sophia says, picking up needle and thread. First, you must understand that every stitch tells a story, every pattern holds meaning. And most importantly, true strength isn't in the weapon or the tool, it's in knowing when and how to use each one. As she begins the lesson, Sophia feels the presence of all those who brought her to this moment. Her father's wisdom, Lorenzo's creativity, the courage of her allies, the sacrifice of those lost. Their legacy lives on in every stitch, every hidden message, every craftsman choosing to stand against corruption. The sun sets over Firenze, painting the city in colors of promise. In workshops across Italy, craftsmen prepare for another night of vigilance, their skills ready to defend their independence. And in a seamstress's shop that is so much more than it appears, the pattern of the future takes shape. stitch by stitch, lesson by lesson, generation by generation. Sophia looks at her gathered allies, her students, her new family forged in struggle and triumph. We are the needle and the blade, she tells them, the visible and the hidden, the creators and the defenders. And as long as we stand together, no force can unravel what we've woven. The shop bell chimes as more students arrive for evening lessons. Sophia takes up her needle, ready to pass on both skills and values to eager hands. Her father's ledger rests safely in its hidden place, no longer a burden of secrets, but a testament to sacrifice and vision. Let others seek power through force and fear. The true strength of the Artisans' League lies in choices freely made, skills freely given, and a network of trust that no machine could ever replace. Sophia begins her lesson, teaching young hands to weave beauty and strength together. The pattern continues, and the story grows. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.